It's extremely dangerous to walk around in ignorance. Yep, I said it. It's extremely dangerous to walk around in ignorance. In fact, being ignorant is a dangerous thing. Let me give the definition of ignorance first before anybody tries to get offended by what I just said. Because if you know anything about me, I put myself under the fire as well. And I'm going to share some things with you all, how I made some decisions in the past. Because I didn't take advice. I thought I knew better, right? And it turned around and bit my butt in the butt. And I want to have a talk with you all about it. Anyway, the definition of ignorance is a lack of knowledge, a lack of education, a lack of information, or a lack of understanding about something. You can look it up yourself. Look up the definition. It simply means a person has not learned or heard about a specific topic. I want to take that definition just a little bit further. I don't even think it's so much a person hasn't learned or heard about the topic. I think, and I'm speaking for myself right now, you probably learned and heard about it, but just thought you knew better. And you chose to go a different path because you thought you knew what was best to do. And sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know and we think we know better. Now, I'm especially talking to those of us. Now, you all know I love you. We love God tremendously, right? And you all know, you look at my Bible, you're not going to find too many pages not completely marked up. And I spend a lot of time in prayer. I love God with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. But especially for the believers, we love God. And we know when we heard something, this is how it's got to be. Am I right? We know we woke up this morning and God gave us an idea and we're going to run with it. And then tomorrow is something else. And then next week is something else. And next week is something else. So you can be all over the place under the umbrella of, well, wait a minute, I'm just going to only follow and listen to what God is calling me to do. When sometimes you can be all over the place going from one thing to the next, walking around in what we call ignorance. And I'm saying this in love because I've done it many times myself. I'm explaining it in a minute. I'm explaining. Just because God gave you all those beautiful ideas, my creative sisters and brothers, that doesn't mean we do them all at one time. That doesn't mean we try to do 50 things at one time because God gave it all to us. Some things are meant to be done in a season, and God is a God of order. I'm going to do my best to break this podcast episode down into two different episodes. One, I'll focus a little bit more on life, and then the other, I'll focus a little bit more on business. But they may cross over a little bit because some of my examples kind of tend to go, it can actually fall in both sides. So go to Proverbs 14:12 real quick. Proverbs 14:12 is a very important Proverbs I think we all need to remember. Proverbs 14:12. Now, my Bible is a much older version. I've had my Bible, this same Bible, for well over 30-something years. My Bible was given to me as a gift when I got married about 34 years ago. But in verse 12, it says, "There's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death." You all know where I'm going with this. There's another passage, and normally I don't even have the scriptures written down, but I have a few written down this time. Proverbs 27:17. That's another one let's turn to. I'm going to give some examples to you all, and I pray to God that this is the day we make a decision. We're not walking around in ignorance any longer. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." And you all already know that I'm thinking about Exodus 18 already. For those of you who know your Bible really well, you already know. I'm thinking about the story in Exodus 18. Wait a minute, now where's Exodus? Here we go. Exodus 18, one of my favorite passages in the Bible. You all can read through the entire chapter of Exodus 18. But I love when Moses thought he was out there really doing something. And Moses was out there wearing his butt out, and I say that with love and respect. Being up on that mountain all day long, judging the people, everybody coming before him. His father-in-law Jethro came and visited, and Moses just knew that what he was doing was right because all of the people needed him. He said in verse 14, and this is Exodus 18, when his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, What is this you're doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning to evening? Moses answered him, because the people came to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it's brought before me. And he goes on to talk about how he was the one that had to decide between both of the parties, who's right and who's wrong and all that mess, right? And then in verse 17, this is one of my favorite verses literally in the Bible. Moses' father-in-law replied, what you're doing is not good. That's interesting. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. He said, the work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Now, before you all try to change up my words or anything, I'm not calling Moses ignorant. Let me just be honest. I have greater respect for the people in the Bible than to do that. But I just want to use this as an example. And let me be clear. Under the definition, ignorance is a lack of knowledge, a lack of education, a lack of information, or a lack of understanding about something. So we're going to go under that little bit of a definition, right? We can think that what we're doing is right because we have the right heart. Right? We want to, let me just use this as an example. You want to serve, you want to help people, you want to be like Jesus, right? That's all of us, right? We want to do what's right before people. We just want to pour out, right? So we can feel really, really, really good that this is the right thing to do. But notice when Jethro came along and he looked at Moses and he looked past the, I get that you're trying to help people. I'm paraphrasing right now. But do you not understand you're going to wear your butt out? Do you not understand this is not a good way to do your day in and day out, all day long, to be standing up on this mountain judging the people and deciding between cases? Do you not understand there needs to be some form of order here? Do you not understand that you need to appoint some people to help you in these certain areas? Can you imagine what Moses may have been thinking? Now, let me get personal and just use myself as an example, because I think it's the right thing to do, to be honest. You all, and I've talked about this so many times on my podcast episode, and especially in my live weekly training sessions when I get with leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs. In fact, I'll talk about that probably in part 2 of this episode. You all, there's been so many times in life where I, honest to God, thought this is the way it's supposed to be done. And just pouring and pouring and pouring. And the terminology can be used as over-serving. Sometimes you can get locked into over-serving because you just want to pour and you just want to show up. I didn't know that I was completely draining myself. I didn't know that I was draining. I want to use this the right word, the right way, that I was draining my spirit, that I was just exhausting. That's the word. I didn't know that I was even exhausting myself, that I was getting tired. I didn't know that I was pouring in so much without the wisdom, with having the orderly structure with it, especially in the very, very beginning. For those of you all who have been following me for a while, and this goes before my podcast even began. This is just life in general. I've grown up, and I'm sure many of you all can relate to this, serving and giving. I've grown up in households where my mother had a grocery cart in her kitchen. This is the honest to God truth. Who have a grocery cart in their kitchen? That's the kind of giver my mom was, God rest her soul. She was an amazing, amazing woman of God, an amazing minister. She's been through a lot in her life. She's no longer with us. I won't go into my whole life story with that, but you all know she was just a child when she had me, and we went through a lot in life. I remember we moved 22 times in 1 year because she was getting away from so much abuse, and we just went through so many things in life. I know what it's like to be homeless, and a lot in my upbringing. For those who know my story, you already know. For those who don't know, listen to some other podcast episodes and you'll get caught up on it. But anyway, I say this to say, my mother literally had a grocery cart in her kitchen, and you couldn't go to her house and leave hungry. Anyone in the neighborhood would know if you're hungry, you need something to eat, you can go to her house. Some people call her Big Mama. Some people, anyway, she was just kind of known in the neighborhood as Mama. You literally would go in there. Even when used to go to visit my mom, literally, we had to make sure that the car was empty because we knew that it would be filled up when we left. And it's not because she had all this money. It's just so many pantries and different places would drop off food and things for her because they knew that she would be the one that would give it out. But anyway, the point is, even from her own money, she would pack her kitchen so that people can come in, literally walk around in her kitchen. This is a God honest truth, and grocery shop and leave. Not giving her a single penny, I kid you not. So I grew up in an environment like that, even with my grandpa, God rest his soul, who primarily raised me when I was younger, because my mother was just a very young girl herself. Again, that's a whole nother subject, can't go into now. But what I love about my grandpa, he used to always serve and give. So he was a farmer. He had a huge garden. And people would come and anything you want, watermelon, cantaloupe, peas, whatever you need, you just go out there and get it. So imagine coming from that kind of an environment. You come from an environment of where people naturally give, which is who I am by nature, right? You can so easily get yourself caught up in over-serving, overextending yourself to the point where you begin to walk in ignorance. And I'm talking about myself. I remember not taking advice on a number of occasions. Let me just be honest. Not taking advice on a number of occasions of, Z, what you're doing is not good. I know that your heart is good in this. This is earlier on when I very first started mentoring. I very first started, I think it was around the time the podcast started, maybe even right before that, but I just remember getting the advice, Z, the way you're doing this is not good. You are literally draining so much of your personal funds and savings into pouring out to serve, which is beautiful, Z, beautiful. But you need to put some parameters on this and be guarded with how you're going about doing this. But you know me, I got all religiously prideful. And I'm thinking, well, they just must not love God the way I do. We're supposed to serve and just give freely, and we're supposed to just exalt. And you all know the story. I poured and poured and poured to the point where I became so exhausted, going broke, like just pouring and pouring and pouring, because I literally thought, no, this is what it looks like. You're supposed to just show up and just pour completely like Jesus did. I'm being a good steward. I'm draining everything for the sake of the people. This is what looks right. I didn't even understand that wasn't being a good steward of what God entrusted to me. In order to do this with excellence, I need to make sure that I'm also taken care of. And I need to make sure that I'm also structured and I have order in my life. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing unholy about that. So you can have the best of intentions, right? You really can have the best of intentions. I'm going to get to the business owners in a minute. I can't wait to talk to you all in the part 2 of this. But you can have the best intentions in the world and still be in error. I get with a lot of business owners and leaders, entrepreneurs all the time. I have these live clarity conversations where I get to talk with people. And keep in mind, on a weekly basis, I get with members in the Unlocking Greatness community, all of which, I'd say 90-something% of which are women. But I get with them. Imagine we get together, we talk through their businesses, we talk to what's going on in life, we focus on spiritual growth, personal growth, and entrepreneurship. And I see this pattern because, when you've talked to thousands and thousands of people, you can begin to see these patterns exist. And one of the patterns, I'm going to focus on the life aspect of this, not the business right now, but one of the patterns I consistently see is, for those of us who truly desire to love and serve God with all our heart, mind, body, and soul, and God knows that is my heart, and I know that is your heart, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast episode for this long, we have a very hard time when it comes to having order, right? Recognizing our value. About 50 to 80%, not 80, maybe 50 to 60 or 70% of the people inside of Unlocking Greatness are either a coach or a mentor. Some are ministers, actually. And somewhere or another, they're advising or counseling or helping other people. And one of the hardest things is for them recognizing and seeing their value. And I know that because I've been like that for a long time myself. Right? They're used to pouring and giving freely. But then when it comes to making sure that they're taken care of, right? That their finances are taken care of, that they're secured in a way that they can at least be able to show up and serve with excellency and not in lack, that's when it gets to be very, very difficult. They don't see their value. Does that make sense? And so sometimes you have to have someone that comes along and say, wait a minute, it's amazing how you show up and you want to give and serve and love. Continue doing that. But sometimes the way that we go about doing it is not in order, and it's done. And I want to say these words in the right way. It can be done in ignorance if we're not aware. Let me give the definition of ignorance again before someone gets offended. A lack of knowledge or education or information or understanding about something. And I think this is the Webster's definition. And it goes on to say, a person has not learned or heard about a specific topic. Let me take that another step. When I have a lot of calls and talks with those of you who are looking to grow spiritually, personally, or as entrepreneurs or business owners, this is what really gets me. And I'm going to go into talking about this more in part 2 when I get to the business part of this. Sometimes you all, due to the ignorance, and again, I say that with love based on this definition, due to the ignorance we can be walking around in, sometimes we can begin to question, did God really give us the dream or the goal in the first place? Do we really have the value or the talents that we believe that God has given us? And sometimes we can begin to question it, because you can get out there to do the thing, whatever it is that God has entrusted you to build, right? Whatever that is. And it don't go the way you think that it should go, or you hope that it would go, right? You put your program out there, no one buys, or, you whatever it is, you put your book out, whatever it is you put out there, and you're not getting the response you thought. And we can literally begin to get weary, to get tired, and to begin to walk around in some form of ignorance, only because we don't know what we don't know. Let me give an example, and I'll let this be a lead-in into the part 2 episode that I'm going to do, which I'm going to focus more on the business aspects. I want to give a lot of examples on that one, but I want to just give you sort of a heads up. For example, I can't even begin to tell you the number of people I talk to that either want to do a podcast, or they want to write a book, or they want to get their coaching program up, or they want to start their nonprofit, or they want to manufacture, right, their own products and services, or whatever it is. And they have spent not days, not months, in many cases years trying to do this thing and trying to get it up. And by the time they're on these calls, when I talk with them, and I love them so much when I have these calls with these aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners, you can just see the weariness just from, I tried, it didn't work, and I've done this, and they're out there getting all this knowledge, but they're lacking the wisdom with it. Does that make sense? Now, I don't know everything. No one knows everything. But in certain areas, when it comes to podcasting or writing books or mentoring and things like that, let's just say God has blessed me to have some experience in that area. I look at some people and I just think, my God, this sister is so incredibly talented. She can run circles around almost everybody that I know. But she's tired and she's weary. And then you look at, why is that? What is going on? And it's just, and I say this in love and respect. I look at it forces me to look at my life and think, oh my God, how many years have I been paying the ignorance tax? Now, I didn't come up with that phrase, the ignorance tax. I don't know if that comes from Myron Golden or Alex Hormozy or somebody, but that's a common phrase that a number of people have been using in this space. And let me give a definition of the ignorance tax, because I just think that that's a very, very, very good phrase that some of these other experts out here use. It's the hidden costs. It's the missed money, and it's the penalty you pay in life and in business simply for not knowing what you should know. I'm going to say that again. And I did not come up with this phrase. Let me be clear. I give credit where credit is due. The hidden cost, the missed money, or the penalty you pay in life and in business simply for not knowing what you should know. I look at some of these sisters and brothers, I should say, and I just think, my God, you can run circles around these people. But you're not aware that podcast you've been trying to get up that takes all of maybe 30 minutes to get set up. Or that book that you've been trying to write and get out the door, all it takes is, maybe 2-3 days, and you're done with it. That mentorship that you're setting up, now this is only because I went through it, my goodness, it's hard being profitable with the way that you're doing it, because you're not seeing your value. You think the very people that you're called to serve and to help, that those should be the very ones, get this, because this is going to help somebody, that those should be the very ones where your income or your resources come from. What if God wants you focused in this direction, right? So that you can do it with excellency and serve the people who can afford it, so you can give freely to the people in this direction, the people you're called to serve. Does that make sense, you all? I don't know about you all, but I'm done paying the ignorance tax. I can't tell you how many times I didn't follow advice that was given to me. A lot of times I didn't. And I've been a business owner almost 30 years, right? A lot of advice I didn't follow. And I had to learn the hard way because I thought I knew better. So that's why I love the second part of this definition about ignorance. The second part of it is a person has not learned or heard about a specific topic. Now, if I were to write this definition in Webster's Dictionary, I would add something onto it, and I would say, well, maybe you did learn and you did hear, but you chose to still go the route you think is best. I'm going to leave you all with this before I close out this first part. Think about this. Ask yourself this, because there's two types of people that are listening to this episode, or watching, I should say. There are the people who they don't know what they don't know, and they know they need to get the help, but they're still going to continue on the exact same pathway and get the exact same results over and over and over again. right? And there are those who are like, I don't know what I don't know. Let me get my butt out there and get the help that I need, and let me start taking advice. See, that's where I went wrong. God, forgive me. In the name of Jesus Christ, forgive me. I walk, I talk, I act, I think from this day forward in the name of Jesus in humility and love and in wisdom. You all, there's been so many times advice had been given to me in the past, and I simply didn't take it because I thought I knew better. So that first group of people is the ones who they know that they don't know what they don't know. They get the advice, they heard, they learn, but they still 5 minutes later off doing what they have been doing. And then that second group of people are the ones who jump on it right away. Hey, like Moses' father-in-law came and told him, what you're doing is not good. Moses turned around and took the advice and did what he was told to do. You see what I'm saying? Just the other day, I'm going to close out with this, but just the other day, there was this 20-year-old. He may be 20 or 21. He's probably going to watch this episode, and he's probably going to smile. There's this 20-year-old who I saw online, and all I'll say, I won't go into detail because I didn't get his permission to mention his name or anything. This young man is unbelievable what he has accomplished in his life at such a young age. I mean, not only, and it's not about money, but I'm just going to bring that up. He's probably made more than what most people are going to make in a lifetime, but just the amount of experience he has in what he's done. He's an expert in a certain area. And I remember seeing him, and I immediately thought, you know what, there's a part of my life where I am ignorant, and I need to learn something from this young man. Now, when I think of going out there and learning something, I think of getting information from me. Right? For one, I need it. And then I think of, shoot, I'm going to bring this to the Unlocking Greatness community, make sure all the business owners and entrepreneurs know this. So I reached out to him. I'm just going to give a very short version. I immediately purchased his books. I stayed up to 2:30 in the morning reading it because I'm done being ignorant in certain areas of my life. And we all have certain areas of our life where we walk around in ignorance. You just may not know it, right? I stayed up to 2:30 in the morning. It's the God honest truth. This just happened over the weekend, by the way. Stayed up to 2 something in the morning. Read his books. Was very impressed, messaged him directly. I literally said to him, because I'm sure he's used to getting people that say, I want to connect, I want to get together, can we meet, can we talk? I literally said, can you send me an invoice and give me a time slot of when I can talk to you? I'd like to pay to get some advice from you. And the reason I did that is because, again, when you have people out there that have a lot of followers and trust me when I say, that's a whole nother subject I can't even go into right now, you all. You got to be willing to invest in yourself. And it's not that I've got all this money sitting around just to throw to the wall. That's not the case at all. But I believe you need to invest in yourself. And when someone has a skill or a talent or whatever, I don't approach that expecting things to be free. Because I know, one, they get that all the time from people. So anyway, I said, send me an invoice. Let me pay you. Now, mind you, I haven't even talked to him yet. Send me an invoice. I want to get some direct advice from you. Sure enough, he sent me the invoice. I won't go into that because it was a whole lot more than what I thought it would be, but that's another subject. Paid the invoice, got with him immediately for a one-on-one. And just what I learned in under 1 hour, I was thinking to myself, my God, the ignorance tax I paid even over the last few years. Now, I coach and lead and help a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, faith-driven women who love God tremendously, who are growing tremendously. I could have in pride very easily sat on that and been like, I'm not going to go to some 20-year-old. I'll be 60 in just a few more years. You know, the pride could have been, I can run circles around this young man. Are you kidding me? No. The humility is, wow, this young man knows something that I don't know. There's a specific way that he markets and advertises and does things, just so you all know, but he's brilliant. He knows something that I don't know. I need to humble myself and get some wisdom from this young man, because this young man has done more than what most people have done in a lifetime. The advice he gave was unbelievable. Now, here's the thing. This is why I'm bringing this up, and I wouldn't even plan on sharing all of this, but I want to share it. You know, when I got myself off that call with him, and I won't even go into too much more about that, do you know that I had the audacity to still sit there and question as if I know better? Do you know it's still, you know, even though I ran with some things, it still took me a day or two to just sort of, okay, I still think, you know, this, I still, do you see how that can be? There's a way that seems right to a man. We think we know, and it's so ingrained in us. And sometimes when the wisdom is presented, we still think. Now, that don't mean you take every bit of advice given to you, and you definitely need to take it before God. I take everything before God. You take it to the throne before God, and you sit and you pray on it, and you get wisdom and direction. But when that's been made clear to you, let me just put that part in there. When that has been made clear to you, then you have a choice. So after about 2 or so days, I said to myself, and I was praying to God on this, I have got to take wisdom. I've got to take advice. I can't keep paying the ignorance tax. Does that make sense? It reminded me when we had the in-person retreat a couple weeks ago. Many of you all attended the retreat that we had in Chicago. There was a lady there, wonderful friend of mine. She attended the Builders Roundtable session that we had that evening and the next morning for all of the entrepreneurs and business owners. Phenomenal sessions, the way that God worked that out. And she said, Z, I implemented one thing that I learned from there. And her program ended up selling out. This is a God honest truth. She ended up selling out. She got with me a little bit later and said, Z, I need some advice in a certain area. I gave her some advice. She ran with it. Now, I'm saying this to say she's the kind of person that when the advice is given, I asked her, I said, why did you take that advice and just run with it the way you did? She says, Z, because in this particular category and what I came to you with, and let me be clear, this is no... this is not shining the light on me because I don't know everything. Let me be clear. I'm just giving you the words that she said. She said, Z, I trust you in this area. You know, I know that you know what you're talking about when it comes to X, Y, and Z. And when you told me to do this, I did it. She literally ran with the advice immediately. Not only is her program sold out, she has another one in January. She's probably going to laugh when she sees this video, or knowing her, she may comment. Her program that she has in January is already sold out. She says, you also gave me advice about getting a down deposit on, the people who want to go to my next session. That's on my waiting list. I went ahead and implemented that. She ran with, and I sat there and I looked, and I pray that she watches this podcast or listen to this episode, because I thought, wow, this is what it looks like when you walk in humility, when you walk in the mindset of God, I want to get wisdom, advice. I want to run with it. I don't want to pay an ignorance tax. And she just ran with it. And I thought to myself, Z, when wisdom comes to you and you put it before God and God has made it clear to you this is what you need to do, stop playing around with it and being double-minded and do what you've been instructed to do. Anyway, I know I went a little left field, but I just thought about her as I was recording this. The second part of this episode, I'm going to focus more on the business part, and we're going to learn a principle that I just taught this Wednesday with all of the business owners and leaders. They learned the principle that they're now applying in their businesses, and I want to talk about that in part 2. So I'm going to close this one out. I love you all. This episode, I think I'm going to title it The Dangers of Ignorance, or The Dangers of Walking in Ignorance. You all, I don't know about you, but I'm done paying the ignorance tax. I'm done. And I'm ready to take advice and move forward. I love you all. I'll see you in the next episode. You're listening to Unlocking Greatness Podcast with Zenja Glass.